Hello, welcome. It's been a few weeks, quite a while since I did my last video. There's been various reasons for that. The weather's been very bad, and I prefer to do my videos outside where I'm sitting here. It's gardening season, so I've been starting to get the garden ready for planting vegetables. And I've also been finishing, I've been writing a novel for the last year and a half now, and I wanted to push on to finish essentially the first draft, and I'm now editing it, and that's taken up a lot of my time, as well as work and looking after children, and also we've acquired a new German Shepherd puppy, which is all that combined, and dealing with COVID situation has detracted from my time, and it's been very difficult to try to find time to make a video and to think about topics. There's plenty of things I could talk about, but it's finding the right motivation. But I was going to entitle this video I don't know, man equals bad, and because of as people have seen in the news, the recent protests at Clapham Column, the vigil it was a terrible tragedy that the young woman Sarah Everard, who was murdered. For any murder, it's tragic. A young life taken like that, and especially tragic. The suspect is a policeman. He's been charged. He's not been found. It's an alleged murder, but it'll be tragic if it turns out to be someone we're meant to trust, a policeman. Of course, evil people come in all guises: teachers, policemen, doctors. Anybody in society can become, we can never be 100% safe. And but what was quite irritating about the political leeches that have tried to make the Sarah Everard thing a vehicle for their own agenda is the kind of man equals bad agenda. I mean, it was highlighted, this Baroness in the Lords suggesting that she was going to make a curfew for 6 o'clock for men. And the story goes that she was kind of half joking by saying that. But of course, Scottish National Party politicians here in Scotland thought it was a great idea and worth considering. And a lot of the feminist groups and women's groups latch onto it, and it fuels the debate in the media about the violence of men, the socialisation of men and boys. This kind of abstract idea that somehow men in this society grew up in a vacuum of their own in reality and are socialised to become violent, and it's all the fault of socialisation. Of course, well, where are women being socialised? Where are they being socialised? In a different place. I mean, it's very interesting when they bring the word up, socialisation. In primary schools, the majority of teachers are women, and in society at the present time, I don't know the statistics, but I can guarantee that in history we have now had the highest proportion of single parent families with single mothers. This is not casting aspersions of people being unfit, or to be bringing up children or teaching children or anything like that. But when they bring in this idea of socialisation in a context where the breakdown of the family is occurring, the biological idea of a man and a woman bringing a child into the world, staying with them, because alongside all what's going on in society, this is being attacked at every angle. The ideas of sexual liberation, polyamory, different kind of family setups, and the assault on gathering of people to meet, and the demonisation of the sexes, or the battles between the sexes is all causing a kind of deconstruction of relationships. Now, out of the Sarah Everard thing, there's been suggestions in Parliament by certain politicians about having plainclothes policemen, I suppose, in nightclubs to watch for predators. Of course, we have nightclub security already to deal with predators and trouble. It's a strange move. It's a strange move, but of course, the nightclubs and pubs have become a very strange place if there's plainclothes officers wandering around. How would women know if they're plainclothes officers or not? And what are the kind of safety considerations that has to be taken into account? So, but the ManBad thing was something that really was irritating, especially because there was the woman Patsy Stevenson was the poster girl for the Clapham Common protests. She was arrested and beautifully photographed. Suggestions that it's a crisis actor, that it was a setup, etc. Well, whether it was or it was not is neither here nor there in some regard, because it doesn't really matter, because the fact is of the matter, a lot of the women's groups and MPs like Jess Phillips, Angela Rayner, etc., they voted in for measures which resulted in this woman being arrested, cracking down on protests, because people have been cracking down on protests, the police have been cracking down on protests for months now, as a result of the legislation that was passed in Parliament as a result of COVID-19. So is it any surprise that people are being arrested for gathering? And as I say, Jess Phillips and Angela Rayner and all these feminist type politicians voted for this, and now they were complaining that a woman was being arrested at this protest or vigil. But the thing is, women have been arrested and harassed and manhandled and thrown into the back of vans for months. There is a wonderful, well, it's not wonderful, but it's a wonderful example of the hypocrisy, because the politicians like Jess Phillips and Angela Rayner and all the politicians who are protesting at this, the police arresting this young woman at the vigil at Clapham Common. There's a picture going around on my Twitter feed, and it's on the link below, of a woman at a lockdown protest being put to the ground. She's on the ground. I take it to be handcuffed, arrested for the protest, and it's 3 women officers. Now, there was not one outcry from Jess Phillips, Angela Rayner et al. As a result of this. None at all. A woman in Dundee, Moira Brown, and her friend were standing in Dundee handing out books and literature. Just the two of them. It wasn't a protest. And they've this week been in court. And they were arrested, handcuffed, put in cells, etc. No outcry. There's a huge hypocrisy going on at the moment. A huge hypocrisy. Individual liberties and freedoms have been eroded as part of the measures used for COVID-19. And the recent policing bill has been passed just the other day, which has made things even worse. You know, our rights to protest have been deteriorated thanks to the likes of Jess Phillips and Angela Rayner, although I believe they didn't vote for the latest one. But it's too late. It's too late. They should have stood up months ago. They're complicit. These people are complicit in the creation of what we now have witnessed. It's a tragedy, because this Patsy Stevenson, crisis actor or not, set up or not, well, it looks like any other rallies for women, there will be arrests now. And I don't believe they should be arrested. I believe they've got every right to protest. I mean, there was people say, oh, the Black Lives Matter people are treated differently, and the anti-lockdown people are, well, there is some element of truth to that. But I did notice a few weeks ago, one of the organisers of the Black Lives Matter movement in the UK, a woman, she wears a beret, looks like some sort of military kind of person, quite outspoken, not my favourite character by any means, and I don't agree with the Black Lives Matter official movement for lots of different reasons, but I agree with the Black Lives Matter people should protest. And I was getting shocked because this Black Lives Matter woman, she was arrested and put in the back of a police van, and the media were very quiet on that, and it was disgraceful. She shouldn't have been arrested. Again, but there was no outcry. There was no outcry from the Jess Phillips. There was not even any outcry from the David Lammies. And he is very Black Lives Matter. So the things that are going on are very, very, very odd. You know? And all this is whipped up. Again, the kind of the myth of toxic masculinity. And I wrote an article about this a few years ago. It was in 2018, I think, just after the Me Too movement, and there was the whole feminist movement was discussing the injustices that occur, for example, and a portion of the Me Too movement, I believe, turned itself into a kind of unofficial, pitchfork crowd chasing, accusing men of all sorts of things. Now, of course, if people have done something wrong, they should be held to account. But I'm thinking of in the article, the spiked article in the link below, Carl Sargent of the Labour Party, MP. He was accused of something in relation to some sort of sexual thing, and he didn't know who his accuser was. I think he was suspended, but he ended up killing himself, and the media were silent. I'm not sure if even Jess Phillips, his fellow party member, even made any announcement or said anything in regard, what had happened to him. But he highlighted this idea of toxic masculinity in this, that men are toxic, they need to be helped, they need to be treated differently, they need to be re-socialised or re-educated in some way. And I wrote about it in my article, that from a psychotherapeutic clinical perspective, that a lot of men are very able to articulate their feelings and emotions, etc. Because that is one of the criticisms, that men aren't in touch with their emotions and can't articulate things. Well, from a clinical perspective, I've been seeing lots of men in therapy. I can assure you that is not the case. It's not the case. Often men are very, very good at articulating their discontent of what's going on in the world with themselves. Likewise, many women I see in therapy, they find it very difficult to articulate their feelings and moods and emotions. And of course, the bad behaviour that you see that often men are accused of misogyny and all sorts of bad behaviour. So as I was saying in my Spiked article, a lot of the men who come to therapy to see me, they are very articulate. They can express their emotions, thoughts and feelings, and they describe how they feel as members in society, as being a man. Men feel very undervalued. They feel shamed for being men, especially for white men. They feel they're not respected, and they are very well aware of what's going on. And likewise, a lot of women who come to therapy are unable to verbalise their feelings, emotions and feelings, and are unable to see often their socialisation and what contributes to their bad behaviour. Because I've worked with many women who domestically abuse their partners, and I've worked with men who've done domestic abuse as well. And it's women are just as much as capable of acting in these ways. And so it's this narrative of man equals bad is quite unfair, I think. It misses the point. Because of course people do not operate in a vacuum in this world. They don't operate solely in their own universe, and the interpersonal dynamics that occur between two people, a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or man and man in a romantic setup is very complex, and all these things have to be taken into account. But often that is disregarded as the problem lies in just one sole unit, one sole person, one being, to the exclusion of all others. And of course, this is where it worries me. This narrative. What I'm trying to get at is, it worries me that this narrative divides people from, and it puts the narrative in a case of blaming just one side, one demographic of people. But of course, that's not how society works. People have to communicate. People have to articulate what's going on. often try to, in part to people I've seen in my clinical work, if they have romantic issues, problems with the relationships, is to try to be frank, and if it's when it's possible, of course, often it's not possible, but to try to discuss their discontent and feelings with their partners. You know, these things have to be. Often, you know, one can hear of a man with a very pro-feminist woman, and she has very definitive views, and the male can feel that he's unable to discuss it or counter it. And I said, well, you should. One should in a relationship. One should be able to discuss these things. You know, not everyone has to be a feminist. Not every man has to be a feminist. There's plenty of men who are feminists who are good men. Just that they don't agree with the feminist ideology. I mean, I don't regard myself as a feminist, but you know, but if people seen the way I lived and how me and my wife live, people might think, well, I'm a model male feminist in many respects, but I don't regard myself as a feminist. Because there's lots about that ideology which I don't agree with. So that maybe make me a man equals bad, perhaps, but fair enough. I'm not out to win any kind of friends in this argument. I'm only trying to state my case of what I think is the case. And the so yes, essentially the necessity to speak with, you know, together and work things out together as a society. The common protesters and the kind of narrative that emerged from that in the last few days is not really about an offering of let's get together and sit down and see how we can make society better or work together. Many men feel alienated from women. Women feel alienated from men, but there's very little discussion of what's going on between men and women. You know, because if it's just a man equals bad, and that's far too simple, reductive to deal with this problem. I think a problem between the sexes, if there is one, of course. In many parts of society, there's no problem between men and women. So the media and the propaganda and the hype about this is quite misleading. It's misleading, mystifying. There's a lot of mystification about it, and so that is where we are. That's where we are. Because there's a lot of young boys growing up in this world at the moment, in a world of COVID-19, and God knows what that entails. Social distancing and masks, and no or very little opportunity to meet. You know, the rise of the social credit system, surveillance, etc. What does this entail for the dating game? What does this entail for opportunities for people to meet each other? Very worrying. Anyhow, these are just a few thoughts, a few ponderings, and to get back in the saddle of the channel. And thanks for watching, and thanks for all the subscribers in the last few months. That's very much appreciated. So if you please press like and share, that'd be very appreciated, so I can get more coverage, because I know a lot of people have been thrown off YouTube and luckily I have not been thrown off YouTube yet. Who knows if that will come, but I'm also in BitChute, and I'm thinking of going on to brand YouTube as well. So till next time, thank you for watching.